if you have been paying attention to the news recently at all, you might hear there's constant chatter about this thing called the speech from the throne. And people might be going, why? We don't have a throne in Canada. There's no magical seat that someone sits on that gets to rule the country. We're a democracy. So you might be wondering why we do a speech from the throne. So the speech from the throne in Canada is really kind of based in what I would call parliamentary tradition. So back in the Middle Ages and into kind of leading to the Industrial Revolution, the king or queen usually would call Parliament together and present a speech from the throne. Because these were absolute monarchies, the speech from the throne really was intended to lay out the goal of the king or queen for this parliamentary session. And often the parliament would do whatever they demanded. Of course, there was some pushback historically over many years, but ultimately it was really a chance to gather parliament together and the king to tell them, here's what I want you to do, and for them to figure it out. So this is actually a painting of Henry VIII opening Parliament in Blackfriars in 1523. So it doesn't look like that really much anymore today. So today in the 21st century, kind of in a modern Canada, the speech from the throne is read by the Governor General in the Senate. A fun little fact about it, actually senators and the Governor General aren't allowed into the House of Commons due to parliamentary tradition. So that is why they're presenting the speech in the Senate. But the Governor General is really just there as a ceremonial figurehead, and the speech is prepared for the Prime Minister and his government, laying out kind of their goals and objectives for the upcoming parliamentary session. As well, during the speech from the throne, in normal times, likely not due to COVID, but political elites and senior public service, it's a kind of a who's who's in Canada would be there. So all of the Supreme Court justices would attend the speech from the throne, usually the head of the various armed forces, the head of the RCMP, and senior civil servants. Likely it will be a very different speech from the throne this year, but there is still a historical tradition that will likely be followed. So why does the speech matter and what's going on with it today? So the speech from the throne, as I mentioned earlier, it's used to lay out the goals and objectives of the current government for the upcoming parliamentary session. So speeches often are present the state of the country to Canadians, as well as the goal for Parliament. The last speech was presented in late 2019. The world has changed just a little bit since late 2019. So the Trudeau government has decided it's in their best interest to present a new speech from the throne, laying out a different agenda forward for the country. As well, it officially opens the session of Parliament and is closely followed by a confidence vote. So because it's a Liberal minority government, that means they don't control the House of Commons on their own. They need to work with other parties. After they give their speech from the throne, they return to Parliament and have a debate on the speech, which then is followed closely by a vote on the speech. If the vote fails, we go to an election. If the vote passes, it demonstrates to the Governor General that the Prime Minister has the confidence of the House, which just means he has their support. And then we move into other parliamentary business, things like budgets and that. So do not please quote me on any of this, but I'm just going to wildly speculate kind of what might be in the speech from the throne based off of news over the last few weeks. So just, for example, recently this week in Ottawa, the premiers of Quebec, Manitoba, Alberta, and Ontario were meeting and demanding from the federal government what they would like to see in the speech from the throne, which is mainly related to healthcare funding, increased transfers to the provinces, but also great ideas, things like universal basic income, childcare, a green recovery, and much, much more has been thrown around as ideas that might be presented in the speech. So ultimately, no one really knows except for people very close to the Prime Minister So you're able to tune in this Wednesday to hear the speech broadcast live from the Senate to see what actually this government has planned for the upcoming session. And yeah, thank you very much, everyone.